Welcome to the Fintech Times News and Views podcast. Established in 2016, the Fintech Times is a global multimedia news outlet centered around the world's first leading fintech newspaper. We report on the latest and brightest ideas from the fintech world. Follow the conversation using hashtag TFD News and Views and follow us at the Fintech Times. Hello, and welcome back to the Fintech Times News and Views podcast. I'm here as ever with Tom and Francis. How are you guys doing this week?
Doing very, very well. It's good to be back. We obviously had a week off last week, thanks to some technical difficulties, which ties in very nicely with a lot of the stuff that's going on this week with CrowdStrike and Microsoft IT outages. So it's an exciting time, a bit of a scary time, but and I've been missing for the last 2 or 3 weeks before that, so it's good to get back into the swing of things. And I'm looking forward to the stories we're bringing to the table today.
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely a big news day today at time of recording with all of these IT outages. But as ever, we have plenty of fintech insights to bring to you. Francis, how are you doing this week?
Yeah, no, I'm doing very well this week. It's been a very busy week, I think, for fintech, and we're well underway in our Fintech for Good focus, which is very exciting and has been going very well. We've had some really good insights over there. And yeah, like Tom said, it is quite scary, like the news that's happened in the last few days. But, you know, hopefully it's not a sign of things to come and we get some normality back soon. But yeah, no, it's been a good week.
Amazing stuff. So, I mean, going back to fintech then and not thinking about sort of the big news, what are you guys going to be talking about this week? Tom, what article are you bringing to the table?
This week, I am taking us all on the trip to Spoons, but only virtually. And I'm going to be talking about how your next pint or soft drink could be paid for using open banking.
Love that. Can't wait. And Francis, what are you going to be talking about?
So this week, I'm going to be talking about Apple and how it's released its NFC chip to the world so that people have access to sort of Face ID and Apple Pay technology now.
Amazing stuff. And I'm going to be talking about Monzo's new account for under 16s and their push for financial education. But Tom, I'm going to let you go first because who doesn't love a cheeky little spoons? So tell us more about what's happening over there.
We do love a cheeky little spoons. And as I said, there's been a bit of a unexpected intersection between Wetherspoons and open banking. It's like, for me personally, it's like two worlds colliding. And it's because Wetherspoons has officially introduced Payit by NatWest as its latest payment option added to its app. So Payit, which is powered by open banking technology, basically removes the need for any card or bank details, meaning that customers don't need a debit card or credit card, and they don't need to actually input any of their personal information to sign up for an account to pay for food and drink. And now that's available at Wetherspoons. So this new payment option basically enables customers to complete in-app orders by selecting the Payit option, and then that directly opens their banking app of choice, allows them to select the bank account that they want to pay from, and it means that there's no need to send any card details over. You know, Wetherspoons won't store your Wetherspoons as a third party won't be able to store your card details, and that basically minimizes the risk of online fraud, which enables consumers to enjoy their orders worry-free. And a great aspect of this is that customers don't actually need to bank with NatWest to utilize Pay at the checkout. Regardless of your bank, this option will be available to you if you're in a Spoons using the app in the UK. So Mark Brandt, the Chief Payment Officer at NatWest, said that the partnership with one of the UK's most recognisable brands is an exciting move for Payit by NatWest, and it's one that allows NatWest to provide a company with an extensive consumer base, and it's a good way for it to reduce the cost of taking payments while adding security through open banking. So I promise I didn't just pick this up because Spoons was mentioned. Maybe I did, but what I really wanted to ask you was, do you think it's actually a good idea and good news for open banking payments? Is it a type of solution that you even think is necessary? And, is it the type of thing that you think people actually bother to check out in the app in the first place, whether it's on the Wetherspoons app or other payment apps, sort of options for different brands? Do you think when people have already gotten used to their sort of preferred payment option, especially in-app, whether it be a digital wallet like Apple Pay or Google Pay, or, they've already got their card details loaded up on the app, do you think people will actually bother to even change their way of paying if they're already comfortable with the one that they do? So I just wanted to get your insight on, what do you think this kind of impact could have? Is it really good news for open banking, or do you think this could be something that actually isn't really utilized by many people? Francis, I'll come to you first.
I think it is a very cool sort of feature that could see some really big uptake. I'm not so sure if it will be. I think it's almost leading the way for other pubs to follow suit. I'm not so sure about Wetherspoons because I mean the app works so sort of seamlessly, and there's not really a requirement as much to scan QR codes, because I know that's where a big risk comes from, sort of buying sort of pints and stuff and food from pubs, is people put fake QR codes on the table and then you'll scan those. But obviously within the Wetherspoons app, you just have to pick what pub you're at and what table you're at. There isn't a need for it. Nonetheless, I do think it is a really interesting way to sort of remove perhaps the authentic, or perhaps the sort of time it takes really to make these payments. Not that they take very long now anyway, but it might be even quicker using this Payit feature. But I think really what will be interesting is to see if other pubs sort of follow suit, as I mentioned before, because I don't know about you guys, but there's nothing more infuriating than when you're stuck on this payment page. You've already selected everything you want. You've scanned the QR code on the table and you're waiting for ages and ages and ages on this payment page, and it just won't load. But it's like if you had Payit or some sort of open banking thing where you could just connect it instantly to your mobile banking app and be like, yep, I've approved this, then that sort of takes out the irritating wait time. So I think it is a very interesting and sort of, just a nice way to be using the system. And I think what will be interesting as well is the amount of times that we've sort of spoken about people not being aware that they're using open banking. Well, I think this is one way to bring sort of awareness to it. Lots of people like to use the Wetherspoons app, and I think a lot of people will see Payit be utilized and then be like, oh wait, I now know what open banking is, type of thing. So I think it is a very good new release and sort of integration into Wetherspoons, and yeah, it'll be good to see how it goes going forward.
Yeah, definitely. I think a lot of people, especially when it comes to the UK, see the UK as, that's the place of big drinking culture. And it's something, that everyone sort of engages with, regardless of, who you are. It's something that so many people are involved with on a weekly basis even. And I think by such a big brand like Wetherspoons, which is, has locations, I mean, everywhere, like you can't go anywhere really without seeing one. And it's such a popular location for people to go, whether it be on their weekend or after work or whatever the reason. It's something that really engages with a lot of demographics in the UK, and I think that can only be a positive thing. I'm still skeptical whether people will quickly jump to use it, because so many people already have their preferred payment set up, within the app, and they are so used to using it for potentially 10 plus years. They're not just going to go, oh, there's a new payment option, let me just try it out, because people don't see the benefit of that. So I think it'll be interesting to see the uptake of it. But the technology itself, as we know it, is good. It's should hopefully do good to reduce levels of risk and fraud. But yeah, as usual, it's for me, I think it's just time to be seen whether people actually uptake it. But Polly, what's your take on this? Do you have a different opinion, or you agree with us?
Yeah, I think I kind of agree with everything that you guys have said so far. I think what Francis was saying about how maybe this is going to help bring sort of open banking and open banking related sort of payments and other solutions into sort of a bit more of a mainstream spotlight. I think that could be true, and I think it's definitely something that it's going to make people have a bit more of awareness of. I think it's a really interesting solution, and I think we've already talked about this so many times, but any opportunity to have more payment methods and more choice for consumers is always great, because as we all know, consumers love having choice, and if this is something that they already like using for other services, being able to use them at Wetherspoons obviously is going to be really helpful. And I think it's interesting what you're saying, Tom, about people. Are people going to use it? Because I think in the back of my mind, I am kind of thinking no, I don't think there's going to be the biggest uptake of this unless it's something that you're already using. Like if you're already using Payit, in different scenarios, then I can see why maybe you'd think, oh yeah, I'll use it next time it spoons on the app. But at the same time, I think there's so many other payment methods that you can use out there, and I think they're just going to be a little bit more popular, like Apple Pay, Google Pay, or whatever, when that's kind of just sort of the go-to. So it'll be interesting to see how much uptake this will get. I do think there is something here for the people who don't happen to have Apple Pay or Google Pay, because they do exist. I know quite a few people who refuse to use Apple Pay for whatever reason. So I could see why that could be helpful, like because then you've got like a direct integration there with your bank. You don't have to take whip your card out, or if you haven't happened to save it or anything like that. I'm saying this, but I'm like, I don't know if that's a thing people do. But I know that, I have a few friends who just refuse to like put their card details into anything. So maybe for them, this will be really useful. But I think, regardless of whether or not, it's going to see the massive uptake, I think in the same breath, it is great to see more solutions. And it's great to see Wetherspoons kind of taking on new things like that, because they've always been kind of at the forefront when it comes to this. Like I'm pretty sure they were one of the first sort of major restaurant chains to like get an app. Like I'm pretty sure the Wetherspoons app has been going for years and years and years and years before everyone else got one, especially with like COVID pandemic and stuff like that. So yeah, really interesting, really cool. Will people use it? Don't know, but it's there. So love that for them.
Yeah, definitely. I think I agree with everything you've just said there. And I think one thing it also comes down to in terms of usage is just, are people actually going to firstly be aware of it, and how well are they going to market the option? Is it going to be something that pops up on the app? We've got this new payment option, or is it just going to be sort of snuck in there as a, when you are at the checkout, it's just another little option on the list? It'd be interesting to see how much attention Wetherspoons and NatWest try and draw to it, or if it will just be okay, we've put that option there now, we'll leave it alone and see where else we can add this sort of functionality to. But I think, a bit of marketing wouldn't go amiss in this situation to try and get more people to use it. But with that in mind, I think we've concluded that very nicely. And Francis, why don't we come to you next for your story?
Yeah, cheers. I think it's quite a nice sort of segue there, Holly, mentioning sort of the use of Apple Pay and Google Pay and sort of mobile wallets in general, because Apple has now released its NFC chip to the world and its NFC technology, and it's just a question of how impactful is that really going to be? Are we going to sort of see sort of the decline of Apple, or not necessarily Apple, but Apple Pay and its usage, or are things going to sort of stay the same and we're just going to have more options? Which, we always talk about more payment options being a good thing, and that is the case again here, but it's just an interesting idea to see how much it's going to change. So for 4 years, Apple has been making its case to the European Union that is not monopolizing the payments and technology markets by restricting who can use its tech. And in order not to face any heavy fines, Apple has now allowed its rivals to access its tap and go payments technology through its NFC chip free of charge. But how impactful will this be on the payments market, and what consequences might Apple face as a result, was sort of what we set out to find in this article. So Apple has been a front runner in the payment space for a very long time, and this was closely monitored by the EU regulators. So much so that in 2020, the EU formally launched an investigation into the firm's payment method and how it could be integrated into apps and websites. And this was especially after its alleged refusals from sites saying that they weren't able to access Apple Pay. So as this case of antitrust continued, the EU found that Apple was able to restrict competition as it wholly owned its ecosystem, meaning Apple Pay was the only option for its users. From a user standpoint, I would say that's fine, but obviously from a market standpoint, it's a big red flag. So the EU sort of threatened Apple with some heavy fines, and as a result, it has now declared that its rivals have access to its contactless payment and mobile wallet technology. And this was market tested by the European Commission, and it gave Apple some feedback on its commitments to sort of making sure that, it wasn't monopolizing the market and that everyone would have equal access to its technology. Anyway, the reason I found this so interesting and important is because we all sort of, I think the three of us at least, always take sort of Apple Pay for granted now because we use it on a day-to-day basis, or Google Pay, Apple Pay, whichever is the easiest sort of mobile wallet solution to us. But some research from Take Payments found that mobile wallets still are the second most used payment method. They're not the primary one yet, and they're still behind contactless payments, which, according to the survey it did, 48% of respondents said that they use contactless, while only 20% said they used mobile wallets. And what I found really interesting about this new announcement is we always talk about, again, payment options and how the more the merrier. Are we now going to sort of see perhaps an uptake in mobile wallets and mobile payments as a result of this? So Ivo Georgiev, co-founder of Payit, said the impact of Apple's news on card users will be minimal, as the mandated change aims to create a more balanced competitive environment where providers have alternate ways of tokenizing cards. Nonetheless, fintechs are in a prime position to capitalize on Apple's announcement. And he said businesses must develop advanced payment solutions beyond what's currently available. Enhance tap to pay and improve card acceptance on iPhones are areas to watch. So what I really wanted to talk about with you guys, really, in sort of a similar way to the last article, is what is it going to take really to sort of see us stop using Apple Pay perhaps as much and sort of turn towards another sort of payments method? Is that even possible, or is it so ingrained now that we perhaps don't need to bring wallets and sort of physical cards about anymore because we're so used to Apple Pay? And it's like, why would I want to deviate away from something that I know that works? So I wanted to sort of see what you guys thought on that. Polly, I'll go to you first.
So I am a huge lover of Apple Pay. I won't. To be fair, I've only recently got an iPhone. I used to have a Google phone, so it was Google Pay all the way. But now I've got an iPhone. It's Apple Pay, and I honestly cannot think of any way that you would get me to stop using it. It would have. I genuinely can't think of how you would make an alternative payment method so good that I would stop using Apple Pay, because like Apple Pay just does everything that I want it to do. And I think it's not even that, you know, it's not even that crazy of a solution. It's just a way that you can use your phone to make a payment, which I know is like really simplifying probably what's quite a hefty piece of technology, as we're talking about with like NFC chips and things like that. But like I can go out and I know that I can always make a payment, and that's it. I mean, I very rarely take my wallet anywhere. I hate carrying things in general, so I don't take a bag. And as we all know, girls' clothes just don't have enough pockets for wallets, blah, blah, blah. We won't get into that. But like, I literally often go out with just my phone because I know that I've got Apple Pay on there. And like, if I need to pay anything, to be fair, if I'm paying for something 9 times out of 10 and it's a physical payment, it's pretty much always Apple Pay because I've got my phone in my hand. So why should I put my phone down, like go into my bag, bring out my bag, get my purse out, pick the card, tap it? You know what I mean? Which I know sounds so stupid and probably a little bit lazy, but like it's just so easy and so convenient. And I genuinely can't think of anything that would change that for me. Like I cannot think of how you would make another payment process or a payment, even if like, you know, fintechs come now and they start making their own payments things using the Apple Pay technology, the NFC chips and things like that. I genuinely can't think of how you would make me stop using Apple Pay. It would have to be really amazing. It'd have to be some sort of bells and whistles on there to like make me move, just because it's so simple and it's so easy. And I think it's really interesting that you say about the research that Apple Pay and like tap to pay, etc., or whatever you call it, is still behind contactless. And I do think we might see a bit of a shift of that as people kind of get as like the our generation and younger get older, because I do think it is a generational thing. Because like my parents won't use Apple Pay or Google Pay or anything like that. They are still very much take out the physical cards and use the contactless. And I know there's still quite a lot of people who, in sort of my parents' generation, who still don't like using contactless because they don't see how it's secure. So I think that's going to change as we move forward, and you're going to see a lot more mobile payments coming in. But yeah, I genuinely, I do not know how you could get me to stop using Apple Pay, other than if I don't get an iPhone next time I upgrade and I get a different phone, and then so I will use whatever payment thing they have. That's the only way you'll get me to stop using it, because it's just so convenient.
I think that's the biggest point, is its convenience. There's just no, and again, this it sort of relates to Tom's article again. It's like when you're setting your in a way of paying, it's just, why would you want to suddenly go against that and try something? Well, I mean, trying something, sure, but like, why would you just suddenly commit to being like, I'm not going to do the way that I know works anymore? And I really think that maybe it's down to marketing, maybe it's down to some sort of reward scheme, perhaps for third party providers and card issuers to really find a different way to sort of, I guess, rival Apple, even in its current standing. I think it is definitely going to take a lot, and I think you're right. I think, oh well, yeah, you are 100% right, but I also think another thing to like add is perhaps all it's going to take is one person to sort of be like, this is a great experience. Tell friends and family, they're going to try it and be like, this is a great experience. Perhaps I don't need to rely on Apple Pay as much. But that is very niche, and I don't see that being the case necessarily, because again, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And Apple Pay more often than not, it is not broken. So yeah, Tom, what do you think?
I'm in agreement with both of you. When I was reading about this story initially when it happened, I read a lot of comments from experts, people in the industry, who said, "Oh, this is a really great news for the payment space because it's going to allow so much payment innovation to take place. It really opens up the opportunity for people to innovate." But especially regarding what you guys are talking about here is mobile wallets, Apple Pay, Google Pay. It's like it already does everything that you could possibly want it to do. Like I can't really think of anything that actually makes sense to add to that experience that would make you want to use it, if that makes sense. I think they've got it exactly as you'd want it. It scans your face or scans your fingerprint or however whatever your phone is allows, or you put your passcode in, bang, tap your phone, done, and then there's no worry about losing your physical card because you don't need to carry it. It's so seamless, and there's not really any way that you could make it more seamless without sort of reducing the security of the payments. So all in all, I see why Apple's been almost okay with opening up this technology, because it's rightly probably very secure in the position that it's found itself in and established, which is we're the go-to payments, especially if you've got an iPhone, and there's not really anything that anyone can release or innovate that's going to crazily change the experience and make people change. So I think you guys are spot on, and I don't really see anything taking the sort of Apple Pay, Google Pay crown, because I just can't even imagine anything that would make it attractive enough.
Yeah, I think you're 100% right. I think it realistically and truthfully, I don't think we will see much change. I think it will definitely be nice to sort of see some more variety in terms of payment options, but in terms of sort of mass adoption, I don't think that's going to change. Although I will say, I remember I was doing or reading a book once, and it was sort of mentioning that a lot of the time when we think about innovation, it's not because people want it, it's because it just sort of happens. Like, I think when people start wanting a certain type of product, it happens, but they're not like the big game changers. The big game changers are the ones that sort of come out of left field and nobody's expecting them to really sort of uproot, I suppose, the status quo and sort of what we all know as our day-to-day payments life. So perhaps this will open the door for something else. I find that highly unlikely, but you never know. I think you guys are spot on in saying that, it's good, but it won't make much difference. And Apple's just too far ahead really at this point. But anyways, Polly, why don't we go to your article?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Francis. So, my article is all about Monzo and their new push for financial education after they're launching, free child accounts. So they have launched a waitlist for Monzo for under 16s, a free account designed for children aged 6 to 15. That is essentially going to help them sort of learn how to manage their money and just generally promote financial education after they found a significant demand among parents for educational tools. So obviously, there's quite a lot of challenger banks that brought out sort of their own children's accounts, like Starling Bank has one, and then there are things like Go Henry, Hyperjar, Rooster Money, things like that, offering tools for younger children. So Monzo is coming in to sort of do their own spin on it and make their own thing and help parents and their children learn how to save money and sort of promote good financial habits. So I think this was a really interesting one, and the main reason I want to talk about it to you guys today was kind of, I guess, more around the sense of this. Obviously, this is a really great feature and you love to see it, but also it's a little bit too late, as there's already quite a lot of competition in the market right now. Is this something that Monzo should have maybe put out a while ago, or or is it fine and they'll still use it? So I mean, Monzo has over 9 million customers, and this new under 16s account aims to integrate financial education into their childhood, equipping the next generation with essential money management skills. So key features include fee-free banking, customizable neon cards, savings goals, educational tools, and other things like that, all sort of part and parcel with like kids accounts that you get on banking apps. And I guess the question of, is this a little bit too late, I suppose, revolves around Monzo customers. I guess if you're a customer of Monzo and you have a child and you want them to be able to manage their finances and get a bank account, then I guess it makes sense for you to want to open a Monzo account for them rather than going elsewhere. But I guess it's really interesting to see sort of, the financial education space getting up a bit. So, I mean, I'm just going to pass it straight to you guys in terms of like, what do you think about this new thing? Is it going to be any different to anything else we've seen? And what kind of you think is going to happen with it? So, Tom, I'll go to you first.
I think I really like the points that you raised there. It's definitely something that I saw, and my initial thought was this is very similar to what already exists in the market, and a lot of different banking firms have already introduced for quite a long time now. And so the first thing I did was look at the functionality, look at the features, and there isn't really anything that they've announced yet, at least, that isn't available elsewhere already. So I think, if you're a Monzo customer, then like you said, it's a really great addition. It's a new functionality. If you've got a child under the age of 16, this is something that is going to be quite seamless to add to your existing sort of accounts, and it's going to be really easy to manage if you're a big fan of Monzo and Monzo is your go-to account. But certainly in terms of attracting new users, I haven't really seen anything that would attract people more than what GoHenry has already been doing for as long as it has, what Starling offers as well. I think it's a nice addition, but I think they're going to need to introduce a lot more functionality, maybe revolving around financial education. They've already got the sort of spending limits and things like that, but they're going to have to maybe introduce something further down the line that's a bit new, a bit more innovative, to try and ensure that they get a bigger user base than just existing Monzo customers.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you've really hit the nail on the head there, Tom. I think, they're really going to have to start pulling out some bells and whistles if they want people to move from their already using, like GoHenry and things like that. But for existing Monzo customers, it does make sense. So I guess we'll see if the solution evolves, or if this is just sort of like a feature that they've developed and thought, yes, so we've got it in our wheelhouse, and then it's just going to be there ticking along. But maybe we won't put that much thought into it. So it'll be interesting to see which direction they go into. But Francis, what do you think on this?
I agree with both of you. I don't think it's anything sort of revolutionary, really. I think it's definitely something that they need. I think if you're not going to offer something like this, you're shooting yourself in the foot, really, because your rivals and competitors are going to be sort of for families looking for perhaps a challenger bank. Why would they go with Monzo if they know that Starling Bank have an account that sort of focuses on financial education for their children and sort of offers these sort of free accounts and so on? And it's just, it doesn't bode well for Monzo essentially if they don't offer this. And I don't think it's necessarily something that's going to make people go, oh, I'd much rather be with Monzo than with Starling, for example. But I do think it is going to be something that perhaps helps people who are just looking to, I guess, get or have a challenger account in the first, or challenger bank account in the first place, I should say. I think it is going to be a sort of a way to be like, perhaps not to take customers from your rivals, but definitely to ensure that they don't all sort of flock to the rivals instead. I think this is definitely going to be helpful in that regard. And I think it's just something that's almost necessary. I think a lot of the time we sort of take these things for granted and sort of think that perhaps, that it is a special offering, but I don't think it is. I think we always speak about financial education and its importance, especially for young people. And I think that any organization really that isn't offering something like this is just not helping themselves and not ultimately helping their customers either. I think this is the way forward. And while it is big news, I don't think it is going to be something that, completely changes the game and makes people think, I can't be with anyone else, I have to be with Monzo.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, you've absolutely nailed it there, and you're both completely right on this one. So I guess it's another one of those kind of watch and wait situations. But anyway, that brings us to the end of our discussion today. Thank you so much, guys, for bringing your thoughts to the table. If you want to hear anything else about anything we've talked about today, or anything else from the fintech world, head on over to fintechtimes.com, where there's plenty more news and insights over there. But very quickly, let's move on to what I learned this week. So each week we learn something new all the time, with all the new information that's crossing our desks, that I thought would be fun to share that with our listeners. So, Tom, what are you feeling this week?
This week, I looked into the new cost of compliance report from LexisNexis Risk Solutions, which says that UK firms currently spend £21,000 per hour fighting financial fraud and crime, and 95% of firms say their costs are actually increasing annually. which means that the annual collective costs to UK firms is now 38.3 billion, which is equivalent to Estonia's GDP.
Fantastic. And Francis, what have you learned this week?
So in line with our monthly theme of Fintech for Good, we reached out to the industry to find out about some of their favorite ethical fintech solutions. And Zara Al-Boudi, CEO and co-founder of Lavenue, she noted a fintech called Bloom Money, which specifically targets immigrants in the UK and helps them build wealth for future generations. It's purpose-built for ethical pooling of funds and community support. And I just thought it was a really nice fintech to sort of highlight and bring some light to.
Amazing stuff. And this week I learned what a zombie company is. So a zombie company is a firm which is making just enough to cover its overheads, but not enough to pay off its debts or invest in growth. And when I saw that article come on the Fintech Times, I was like, that is hilarious. So yeah, anyway, so thanks so much, guys, for joining me this week. It has been a pleasure, as always, to talk about fintech with you. And I will catch you on the next one.
See you guys next week.
See you guys then.
Thanks for listening to the Fintech Times News and Views podcast. Don't miss next week's episode and continue the conversation using hashtag TFT News and Views and follow us at the Fintech Times.